I just wanted to do a video just to clarify some issues from my previous video that I did, where I covered an article in The Guardian which was talking about recruiting so-called neurodiverse women with various different conditions into cybersecurity roles. And in your previous video, I expressed my irritation at the language used in this, and I just wanted to sort of clarify a few issues in case I'm taken the wrong way. So firstly, I don't have anything specifically against employers or companies trying to recruit more disabled people to try and, I guess, restore some balance. I've got nothing against that per se. In case I'm taken wrong, I don't want to be taken the wrong way. My issue was against the use. It was to do with the use of language specifically, the incredibly ableist use of language. By ableist, I mean anything ableist by definition is where you take a group of disabled people and stereotype them. So, you know, like when we talk about racism, for example, I could use racism as an analogy because I think that's quite a good analogy, where we could also use... Yeah, we'll go with racism as an analogy. Okay, so would you take a group... excuse me. Would you take a group of people from ethnic minorities? Now, the ethnic minority designation covers people from loads of different cultures and loads of different, ethnic backgrounds, and they often, who don't have maybe much in common with one another. You know, so ethnic minorities covers like loads and loads of different people from different backgrounds. Who might not have much at all in common with one another. You wouldn't make a sweeping statement, a sweeping stereotype, you wouldn't make a sweeping stereotype against a sweeping stereotype about ethnic minorities, applying a stereotype across all those different groups of people. No one would do that. That would be racist, even if the stereotype was so-called positive. I don't know, I can think of one example, historically, which was a form of racism, but racism with a kind of benevolent face, if there is such a thing. One form of historic racism was to say, I think it was people from China, or I think it was to say that, I can't remember whether it's people from China, or whether they did a more kind of broad brush kind of, I can't remember, it might have been Chinese people, it might have been Japanese people, I can't remember. There was one... historically, they used to go on about them being like really hard-working and stuff like that, like really, really hard-working, which basically was a form of racism, just saying that, because even if there might be some people from that culture who are like that, it's kind of the way in which it was basically a sweeping statement about a whole group of people, which even though like it appears a positive statement, like hard-working, actually it was still racist, and it's racist. Anything that basically takes a group of people, in this case I'm using racism as an analogy, but where you take, in the case I guess of racism as an analogy, where you would take a group of people from a particular culture or something and say that they exhibit a certain characteristic without any regard for their individuality, like treating them all as one, that would be racist. I think most people would agree with that. Although I think positive stereotyping still occurs, and people forget that that's racism as well, because it actually is racism. It doesn't matter whether the stereotyping is negative or positive, it's still racism. So I was using that as an analogy. So in this case, taking a group of neurodiverse people, first of all treating them all the same in like one group, like ignoring their differences, that would be like taking a group of people from different ethnic minorities and treating them all the same. Some people still do that, and that is racist, and that really, really upsets people from these particular groups, because they often share very little in common with another, and it completely kind of almost erases their individuality as cultures. So yeah, I was just using that as an analogy. I mean, it's not an exact analogy, obviously. There are massive differences between disability and ethnic status in terms of, like, the type of discrimination people face, and also it's not an exact, I'm not claiming there's any kind of exact similarity between them, but I'm just saying, I'm just using it as a kind of rather crude analogy, just to like say, well, you wouldn't do that with like ethnic groups or people. You wouldn't treat them all the same. And yet it seems to be that people think it's okay to do with autism or like what I call neurodisabilities. So that's why I call it ableism, or is ableism really, which is the equivalent to racism. It's just that in ableism you're discriminating against disabled people, but often people do it kind of thinking they're doing it. People don't always realise they're doing it when they're doing it in a positive way, but it's still ableism. I think in the past, by the way, when people used to positively stereotype people from various ethnic minority cultures, that was often a form of ethnocentrism as well. I can't quite remember the exact definitions of these terms, but I think it was ethnocentrism. Anyway, what I'm trying to say. So my first gripe against the article was that they were treating these conditions all as one and making a sweeping statement about the condition, saying that people with neurodiverse conditions are really good at patterns, details, etc., and then making a really sweeping judgment about neurodiversity saving the world. Again, I bet they thought they were being so progressive saying that, but would you say that about any other group and think that would go down well? That's the question. I don't think you would. So why is it acceptable? They think, it's positive, but it's not. It's a positive stereotype, but a positive stereotype is still coming at it from a discriminatory way of thinking. Dehumanising. You're dehumanising people here. It's patronising AF. It's just not done. So why do they think it's okay to do that with neurodisabilities? Someone can explain that to me, maybe. Like I say, so they treat all these conditions as the same. I mean, it'd be bad enough if they made a sweeping statement about people with autism as being great at patterns, and which people do, by the way, all the time. That would be like making a sweeping stereotype about autistic people. But doing it against all these different groups is taking it a step further. That was the first thing. So, the second gripe I had against this article was, just trying to get my thoughts into order here. Yeah, I think that actually was the main gripe. Actually, I don't know if I can't think if there's another one. The main issue really was the language, the stereotypical language used, stereotyping, saying that neurodiversity will help save the world. What a load of bullshit. Okay, I'm going to move over to video number 2 now, because I just want to just say a few more things. So, moving over to video number 2.